I want to do things a little bit backwards today. I want to start by asking you a question and opening up dialogue, though there certainly might be afterwards as well. I have a simple question without a simple answer that comes from an essay by Wendell Berry in which he asks, what are people for? What are people for? What's the point? And I want you to answer that question in a way that, and here's the one rule, you can't be negative.
To serve and magnify God.
To serve and magnify God. Okay? Reflect.
To be co-creators.
To be co-creators.
These are our example.
What was that?
He is our example.
He is our example. Imagine you were like a nature documentary narrator, David Attenborough style, and you come across a wild human in their natural habitat. And so the way that with such awe and wonder he would describe the way a meerkat, moves through the world. How would he describe a human living its best life in its natural habitat?
We're the only ones with a conscious awareness of God and ourselves and everything around us and think. Maybe.
The only ones with a conscious awareness.
And so that comes with responsibility of caring for creation.
Yeah, the only ones that we know of with
That we know of.
conscious
Yes.
awareness, yeah. Because we can't talk that with him yet.
Living their best life would be in harmony with nature, with other parts of nature.
To be in harmony with other parts of nature. Okay. I texted Lisa to see where she went. I know she was grieving and didn't come back up.
She's not.
I think she had to leave. Okay. Because I texted her and said, you will fundamentally disagree with the premise of my opening question. It'd be like, humans are a disease on the earth and can do no good. Oh, because that's why I had to put in there that that is the one caveat is you can't say that. In Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer, she says in one of her classes that she taught, she asked her students what humans do positively for the environment, and they couldn't name it. Like, what is humans' role? And all that these wonderful, enlightened college students could come up with was like ways humans can get out of the way and let nature do its thing while we just kind of stand aside from it as if we were separate from it. And she, coming from an indigenous upbringing, was confused by that because it's very clearly taught in her culture that humans exist in and as a part of and have the same amount of responsibilities that the deer does. In fact, we do have an answer to this, and it's in the very beginning of the Bible, and it's in one that I preached on a few weeks ago, Genesis 1:26. We were created to watch over the living things in the earth. God goes through this process, these 5 days of creating the stage for everything to happen, of delighting in all of the little different types of creatures that fly and swim and walk and all of that, and gets to the sixth day and says, let us make humans in our image. Another way to think about in our image is as our messengers, as our people, our representative, as our ambassadors, with our stamp of approval, with our job, to do our job when we're not there. Let us make humans in our image to then go tend to all of the living things that have been made. Humans were made to be gardeners. And that's a perfect metaphor, I think. Anybody who here who has worked to grow a garden understands why this is a perfect metaphor for what it means to be human. Because a gardener creates order, but doesn't force order. It's impossible to force order in nature without growing in a greenhouse. It encourages each individual type of plant to grow and to thrive, encouraging insects and animals and all of the things that nature does, encouraging them to work together for their common thriving. A good gardener understands the wisdom of the place where they have been put and understands that they are co-creators with the soil and not raw extractors of goods from it. They apply wisdom and love to living things in order to usher them into their best selves. That's what people are for, friends. And I think that we are perhaps the only creatures in the world who can delight in creation. And I like I said, I don't know how to speak elephant, and it seems like a lot of other creatures have a lot of fun, but I'm not sure that anyone else can delight in nature. Sure, the bee, as it's drinking the nectar from the flower, is probably enjoying itself, is enjoying the flower for what it gives to it. But does the bee hover next to it and just take in the flower for the flower's flowerness? Can the bee step back from itself, take itself out of its tiny, impossibly small brain, and know the flower for the flower? Give the flower agency and honor and delight. I'm not sure it can. And I think that, friends, is our gift to the world. We are how the earth loves itself and knows itself. We are God's agents of delight. And that's a little bit different way of seeing things. Generally, a lot of people in the West have read this passage and have been, oh, we are to dominate the earth. Yes, of course. We are to have dominion over all the living things, which means we are to take what we want from them and force them to do what we want. You know, factory farming and huge chemical-filled monocultural agriculture and all of that just derives directly from this. But that is not our call. That is not what a gardener does. Our call is to delight in the thing itself. There is I've mentioned her before, Hildegard of Bingen, who is lived about 1,000 years ago. And if she were a man, you would know her as well as you know Da Vinci and all of them. She was a scientist. Her textbook on women's health was used almost exclusively up until about 100 years ago. She was a painter, a poet, a songwriter. The music that she wrote, and she wrote it in notation, is some of the oldest surviving notated music that we have. She was a scholar, a teacher, a mystic. She did everything. Hildegard is a just phenomenal human being, and she had a vision, and she painted it here. This vision is of the fall and redemption of humanity, and it's very esoteric. So I'm not going to describe the whole thing, but I do want to bring your attention to this fellow right here. This is Adam. And in her vision of what happened at the fall of Adam, when we left the garden and why Adam fell, she said God gave Adam a white flower of obedience. And its scent came to the human's nostrils, but he did not taste it with his mouth or touch it with his hands, for he tried to know the wisdom of the law with his intelligence, as if with his nose, but did not perfectly digest it by putting it in his mouth or fulfill it in full blessedness by the work of his hands. And thus he turned away and fell into the thickest darkness out of which he could not pull himself. So the way that Hildegard sees the fall of humanity is that Adam and Eve were given all of this. They were given the flowers, and they simply sniffed the flower, and they didn't inhale deeply and truly know the thing. They did not delight in what they were given, and instead sought to dominate it and to know it and to exploit it. They sniffed the flower, but they didn't inhale it. That's a different kind of image of the fall of humanity, isn't it? One, I think I kind of get, too. How many times I just kind of pass by something beautiful. And I've actually made a reminder on my phone now that every day I need to notice something beautiful, because I tend to just pass by it. I sniff beauty, I sniff creation, and then I move on past, and I miss over delight. And we, friends, are made for delight. So what happens when we do the opposite of this? What happens when we do not delight in the white flower of obedience? Well, what happens is what we read today, which is kind of the final of the origin myths in the beginning part of Genesis. In this story, we read that previously Noah and his family were rebuilding earth, as it were, and there was a concentrated group of humans, and they were moving together as one, ignoring God's call to move out into all of the different spaces and to be stewards of all of those different spaces. We were called to tend to all of the different biomes of earth, the way that Adam and Eve did for Eden. The mountains, the streams, the deserts, the tundra, all of those individual spaces with their own individual wisdom to teach us in how we are to bring them into their thriving and how we are to love them and delight in them. Instead of doing that, instead of multiplying out into the corners of the world, humans in this story instead sought their own human flourishing to the neglect of everyone else. They said, "We will make a name for ourselves," which in the context of the story, there's no one else on earth. They're the only humans. Who are they making a name to and about and from? Who were they trying to impress? Animals? God? Other spirits? I don't know. So they found a flat plain, the most boring of all places, that can be so easily dominated because there's nothing to tame. And they didn't use stone or wood to build their dwelling places. The text said they fired clay bricks, as in they dug up clay and they put them in human-made molds to create straight lines and predictable patterns of rectangles that they could stack on each other and create order, deadness, predictability. They planned their city streets to move in grids so everything would be able to be predicted and very geared towards human thriving and nothing else. Nature doesn't do straight lines, does it? There's no such thing as a straight river or a straight coastline. This was an artificial city with pristine building materials carefully planned out for human habitation and completely isolationist. We, friends, we were designed to know the wisdom of the wild, the diversity of nature, and to delight in its beauty along with God. We were meant to be shepherds of nature, not overlords above it. We were meant to be inextricably intertwined with creation, not removed from it. And so in that context, God's scattering of the people and confusing of their language is a gift, not a punishment. It is a gift forcibly given to an immature species who did not know what people were for. These people, like Adam, smelled the flower, but did not truly experience it. So God halted their hubristic building projects and sent them back into nature to learn what people are for. And if there has ever been a time in history, friends, where this has resonated more, it is now. Technology as we have it has rendered us useless. Sorry to say. A 2016 Department of the Interior study found that children could identify over 1,000 brand logos and less than 10 native species of plants and animals in their neighborhood. 82% of Americans cannot identify an oak leaf. Does anybody have an oak leaf? Yes, Pat has an oak leaf. If you want to look at it and become one of the 18% that knows what an oak leaf is. Yes, that is an oak. That is where acorns come from. Like modernity promised us simplicity and ease. More time to relax, more time to create art, to do hobbies, to build relationships. But instead, it gave us a poisoned planet, meaningless jobs, endless anxiety, while AI creates art and has all the fun, seemingly. We have no idea what people are for. And traditional modern religion, I don't think, has a good answer for that. But deep down inside, people know what people are for. And that's why nature-based spirituality is one of the fastest growing groups in the country. Whether they're pagans or witches or Wiccans or Druids or however they label themselves, at their heart, they feel called to reconnect with nature and remystify the human experience. To remystify that which we have demystified. They get it. And this is why we're taking this sermon series to talk about creation spirituality, because we don't need to abandon Christianity to find this truth. We don't need to all go out and become Wiccans. You can if you want, I suppose. We don't need to go to other religions to find these insights and pull them into our own. This has been a current of Christianity from the beginning. More than that, this was a current in the Hebrew scriptures as well. If you read through the Hebrew Bible, it is incredibly critical of the isolation and dehumanization that comes from urbanization. And the mystics that we have, like Hildegard, like Meister Eckhart, who we talked about before, like St. Francis, they've been drawing us back to these roots for millennia. People were made to delight in creation, to shepherd its flourishing and to pass on its wisdom. People were made to continue the work of creation that the Creator started. And that is what it means to be created in the image and likeness of God. So if you want to learn this way, friends, if you feel a stirring in your heart that you also see that modernity is empty and hollow, and that these carefully controlled cities and buildings, apart from everything living that we have created, is actually not bringing you the life that it promised you in the commercials, then you must fall in love with Mother Earth. But one cannot simply fall in love with the earth. She is far too big. Now, you might be able to, in theory, you might feel bad about the polar bears you see on the news, and so you decide that you're going to recycle more or whatever it may be, and through habit, you start doing better things for the environment. Sure, you can get there by that route, but I would challenge you to get there a different way. We do not fall in love with the earth as a whole. We fall in love with the particular. You must plant a garden, a small one even, or rent a kayak, create compost, bike a path more than once, sit by a river, or ask the birds to teach you their songs, or ask Candy to teach you their songs. But she's not here, so next week you ask her to teach them. You begin with the love of the particular, and it expands to the love of the universal. And then it expands even further to the love of the Creator. You raise one caterpillar, and before you know it, you are in love with every butterfly. And then you're writing to your congressperson about protecting their habitats. To quote Wendell Berry again one more time, he wrote, "We know enough of our own history by now to be aware that people exploit what they have merely concluded to be of value, but they defend what they love. To defend what we love, we need a particularizing language, for we love what we particularly know." So what do you love, friends? Where is your place? What is your connection? Do you have one? If not, listen to other people for ideas. Maybe you can sit with the image of Hildegard and Adam in the flower. Where is it that you have breathed deeply and truly known the white flower? That's open to all.